Welcome to Party Team Table Talks. I'm Brian, and today we're going to be going over the game of Texas Hold'em. First, let's cover setup for a Texas Hold'em game. You're going to have 10 players, and then yourself, the dealer. So you'll want 11 chairs and 10 coasters to mark each place setting. With each place setting, you're also going to want one of our Party Team business cards, and at about every other place setting or so, you're going to want to have a chip denomination card, which tells your guests how much each one of their chips are worth. Also, as part of your setup, you're going to need a chip tray, a roll of raffle tickets, which, as you know by now, every $500 in chips that a guest has at the end of an event will then turn into a raffle ticket that they can use to win prizes, one deck of cards, a tip cup, if allowed by the client, which you can check with your event captain to find out whether or not you can have one out, and your dealer button, cut card, and most importantly, the deck of cards in which you will play poker. It is of the utmost importance to ensure that your poker deck is complete with all 52 cards in the set. The best way to do this is when you start, take your cards and separate them into the 4 different suits: diamonds, clubs, hearts, and spades. Put each card from each suit into one group and then sort them in chronological order, from aces being the lowest to kings being the highest. Once you know you have 52 cards, you're going to be ready to play poker. When a new player sits down at your table, if they don't have any chips already, they're going to give you $1,000 in funny money. You'll take that $1,000 and give them $1,000 worth of chips. This is the way you're going to want to give them their chips. You will have 5 red chips, totaling 25, 3 green chips, totaling 75 for your first 100, 4 black chips, totaling 400 for 500 in total small chips, and 1 blue chip, which is worth 500 on its own, making a total of 1,000 chips. Your players will sit down, you'll take their funny money, and you will distribute their chips to them. In this example, we're going to be dealing with 4 players. Players sit down, you establish a button, and then you have to make sure the blinds go in. As mentioned before, the small blind must pay a half bet, and the big blind must pay a full bet before they even see their cards. The standard for Party Team Texas Hold'em Poker is a small blind of 5 and a big blind of 10. 1 red chip, 2 red chips. Now that the blinds are in, you can distribute the cards. You always deal to the small blind first, big blind second, and so on. The dealer button always gets the last card. Once you've dealt 2 cards to all the players, the round of betting pre-flop must continue. The player sitting to the left of the big blind is the first to act. They have 3 choices. They can either A, call the big blind, which means to match it, so 2 red chips. Their second choice is to raise. A raise must be at least double the last bet. In this case, the big blind, it would have to be 20, but it can be anything more than that as long as it's above that minimum. Their third choice is for the player to fold their cards, not participate in the hand, and save their chips. Let's say in this instance that the person sitting to the left of the dealer opts to call. All they'd have to do is put in 2 chips. Then you move on to the next player, in this case the button. Let's say they fold and choose not to participate in the hand. Now we come back to the small blind. The small blind is already committed a half bet to this pot, and no matter what they do, that half pot is going in the middle. So even if the small blind decides to fold, you'll still take their small blind and put it into the main pot for other players. Let's say the small blind decides to call. Now you move on to the big blind. The big blind is already committed to this hand, and if there have been no raises to the big blind, they're able to see the hand without having to pay anything extra. However, you always have to offer the option to the big blind. After you go around your rotation, you come to the big blind and you ask, option to raise. Because they made their bet before they saw their cards, the big blind doesn't know what kind of hand they have until you give them this chance. If they feel like they have a really good hand, they might want to raise. If the action has been raised to the big blind and they don't want to call, it's a good opportunity for them to fold. Well, now that we've went through the pre-flop betting structure and gotten all the way through it, it's time to go to the flop. Rake in everybody's chips and make 1 even pile to your left. Then, burn 1 card. This is an out-of-play card that goes face down. No one knows what it is. Now you turn over 3 cards for your flop. After the flop, we begin a new round of betting, starting with the player sitting to the left of the dealer button. This was your small blind from before. Each player has a chance to make a bet, a raise, or a fold, but we'll get into more detail as to how that works later. After that round of betting concludes, it's time to burn one and turn your turn card. Another round of betting, and should you make it this far afterward, card down, river card, to make a 5-card community board that all players share from when trying to make their personal best 5-card hand. So now we review the basics of Texas Hold'em. Let's walk through an example hand. In this example, I'm going to be revealing the players' cards that would otherwise be kept a secret so that you can understand some of the thinking behind this and what your actions are as a dealer. With the dealer button in this position, we have to make sure we first put in our small blind for 5 and our big blind for 10. Then the cards are dealt out. Action starts at the dealer button. The player at the dealer button has an ace of diamonds and a king of hearts. Thinking that's a pretty good hand, let's say that this player opts to raise, raising the action to 35. That would be 1 green chip for 25, 2 red chips for 10, 35 all day. The next person to act is the small blind, who's already committed $5 into the pot no matter what action they choose to take. They come out with ace queen offsuit. Feeling good about this hand, having an ace and the queen as the under kicker, they decide to call the bet of 35, matching it with 1 more red chip and 1 green chip for a total of 35. Now we come around to the big blind that's already committed its 10 and is now facing a raise of 25 should they decide to call. Revealing their hand, they have a made hand, otherwise known as a pocket pair, in this case pocket deuces. In a lot of cases, pocket deuces would decide to fold here, but because the value is right, they're going to go ahead and call, and also for the sake of the example, we get more action this way. So now at the last action, the raise has been called, you as the dealer will collect all of the money, push it to your left side into a pot, place your burn card underneath the pot, this is the card that does not affect play, and show your flop. 3 cards face down, flip over, the flop comes out, 3 of spades, 3 of clubs, 9 of diamonds. I highly recommend when you deal Texas Hold'em poker to announce your cards, number and suit to your players. That way they always know what's on the board and you keep them engaged and you're generally more entertaining. Action starts with the player sitting to the left of the dealer button, in this case our player with ace queen. Remember, we would not be seeing any of these cards. In a traditional game of Texas Hold'em, these would be the whole cards kept to just the player. But for the sake of our example, we're showing them to you, the viewer. So action starts here, and we're going to say in this hypothetical that ace queen chooses to check, meaning they pass their action on to the next player, in this case pocket deuces. Pocket deuces takes a look at this board and sees a pair of 3s and a 9 and thinks, well, my deuces contribute well to this board. I haven't improved my hand much, if at all, but I think both of these players probably have high overcards and that they didn't make their hand either. So pocket deuces takes the idea to bet and bets $100, 1 black chip. Action moves over to the dealer. The dealer with their ace king, 2 overcards to the board, decides that they're going to call as well. And let's say for this scenario, ace queen also decides to call. Now that the action has been complete, you again as the dealer collect the money, move it into the pot, burn 1 card, and flip over your turn card. In this case, a 9 of hearts. Now something interesting has happened here. The deuces were the best hand on the best street when it was 2 pair 2s and 3s with a 9 underneath. Now, however, the board is 2 9s and 2 3s, meaning the deuces don't matter anymore, and the best hand that our player in the deuce position has is 2 3s and a pair of 9s with a deuce underneath. Of course, keep in mind, none of the players know what each other's cards are. Ace queen looks at this board, realizes they have 3s and 9s with an ace, doesn't really have anything, maybe they're worried another player has a 9, they decide to check. Deuces, knowing that their hand is pretty much dead at this point, also decides to check. Coming over to the initial raiser at ace of diamonds, king of hearts, seeing a lot of weakness on the board, decides to go ahead and bet out $200. Now, the $200 bet must be called, raised, or folded to by the player with ace queen. They take a little bit of time to think about it, decide that, yeah, maybe this ace will hold up, and hey, maybe an ace or a queen are going to come on the river, and I have a chance to win this. So they go ahead and call. Deuces
recognizing that they've been counterfeited by the 2 9s, the 2 3s, thinks for a while but makes a very disciplined decision to fold their cards and get out of the hand. Now the play is just heads up. Deuces can no longer win any money, but they can't lose any money either. Money goes in the pot. Last card comes down, and flipped over on the river is a jack of hearts. There's no flush draw on this board. 2 hearts are the closest you have, and you would need at least 5 for there to be a flush. There's no straight draw because there are no cards in sequential order. So both players recognize that the best card that either player could have would be a 9, a 3, or a jack, depending on what the hand may end up being. First to the left of the dealer button is ace-queen. They have the first action where they can bet, check, or fold. They wouldn't fold because it's free to check, and they decide to do just that. Coming back around to ace of diamonds, king of hearts, he could bet here and try to steal the pot, but ace-king also decides to check. What happens now? Remember, these cards would have been face down the entire time. Now that all 5 cards are out, the pot's right, all bets have been made, both players flip over their cards. We reveal ace-queen, we reveal ace-king. What does that mean? That means that both players have the same hand right now. A pair of 3s, a pair of 9s, and an ace to add to their 5-card hand. The king doesn't play for ace-king because they're looking for the 2 pairs that are on the board. Same reason for ace-queen. They're using the 2 pairs on the board. So they both have the same kicker of an ace. When this happens, you have what's called a chopped pot because both of these players, the ace-king and the ace-queen, have the same 5-card hand. So after you've checked everything, you make sure the chop pot is correct. You as the dealer do exactly that. You take all the chips and you evenly distribute them amongst both players. So in this case, 1, 2, 3 blacks, 1, 2, 3 blacks, 1 black over here, 3 greens for 75, 5 reds for 25. So this is 400 right now. There's 1 extra red chip because of the way the pot's worked out. The extra chip always goes to the player closest to the left of the dealer button. In this case, ace-queen. So they both get 400, but ace-queen takes home the extra 5. You give the players their chip winnings. Now that the hand is concluded, you take all the cards, muck them together, bring the deck back together, move the dealer button, instructing the players to put in their next blind of 5 and 10, shuffle up your cards, and get ready for the next hand.